what do all the governors, Republicans and Democrats along the entire East Coast and along the entire West Coast of the United States and over 330 municipalities and counties from these states all have in common? You know what they have in common? They are all opposed to expanding offshore oil and gas development off their shores. Today, we are here to ensure that these coasts, the Atlantic and the Pacific, receive the assurance and the protection that they deserve. H.R. 1941, the Coastal and Marine Economies Protection Act, would permanently protect the Atlantic and Pacific coasts from offshore oil and gas drilling. From Maine down to Florida, from Washington to California, over 3,000 miles of the United States coasts are threatened by the fossil fuel industry's driven agenda, which is driven by the Trump administration. One of President Trump's first actions upon taking office was mandating that the development of a new and totally unnecessary 5-year plan for offshore oil and gas lease sales. January 2018, former Interior Secretary Zinke released a draft of that plan, which proposed opening more than 90% of the outer continental shelf to oil and gas development. This proposal included the entirety of America's Atlantic and Pacific coasts, and if enacted, drilling could endanger more than 72,000 miles of U.S. shorelines. Expectedly, there was immediate pushback from citizens, elected officials, governors, business leaders, all who understood that their coastal communities are incompatible with offshore oil and gas. The public knows that bringing an industry as risky and as dirty as oil and gas to the Atlantic and Pacific coast is dangerous on many levels. Our oceans sustain a rich diversity of marine life, and they provide immense value to America's coastal communities by helping to generate billions of dollars in economic output and by supporting millions of jobs. For example, thriving fish stocks and healthy marine mammals off the coast of New Jersey, Maryland, and Florida support tackle shops, whale watching tours, and a massive seafood industry. And oil-free beaches and bays in Virginia and the Carolinas drive business for local restaurants, for vacation rentals, and for outfitters. But coastal residents are not the only ones who will benefit from protecting these areas. Some of our nation's most majestic national park units, belonging to all Americans, are along our coast, including Arcadia, Biscayne, Cape Hatteras, and Point Reyes. People from all walks of life and diverse backgrounds and from both political parties cherish these special places, and they rely on healthy oceans, clean beaches, and the abundant fish and wildlife that come with them. The inevitable spills and the variety of other onshore and offshore impacts from oil and gas drilling have no place along our east and west coast. Over 1 million people are employed by the tourism and recreation industries along the East Coast. These are real jobs that exist now and will only grow if we continue to treat our oceans and coasts with care. That's over 4 times as many jobs as the industry-generated fantasies that come with opening the entire Atlantic seaboard to drilling rigs. 4 times as many jobs would be at risk from the industrial facilities that would be built along the coast. 4 times as many jobs would be at risk from the chronic pollution and pipeline spills that are widespread with offshore oil and gas. and 4 times as many jobs would be at risk from a catastrophic blowout like the one we saw in the Gulf of Mexico only 9 years ago. None of these facts or the outcry from concerned citizens have influenced a Trump administration that is laser focused on doing the bidding of the oil and gas industry. Instead of protecting our coasts, President Trump and Secretary Bernhardt have played politics and now are hiding their plan to drill near our communities. In January 2018, immediately after the release of the draft leasing program, then Secretary Zinke met with then Florida Governor Rick Scott at the Tallahassee airport and tweeted he was removing Florida from the leasing program. However, it turned out that this was nothing more than a ploy meant to boost the political prospects of a Republican Senate candidate. First, Florida was in, then it was out, then it was in again, and now nobody except Secretary Bernhardt and President Trump knows for sure. For 2.5 years, this administration has based its offshore drilling decisions on politics, not on the needs or the concerns of coastal communities. In April, the administration announced that their offshore leasing plans are now on hold due to a recent court decision that's related to Alaska. But that is only a short-term reprieve. At any moment, the administration can restart their efforts to auction off our nation's marine resources, which will undoubtedly happen if the president were to get a second term. Coastal communities need assurance that their businesses, their beaches, their way of life will not be sacrificed to the fossil fuel industry by the Trump administration. H.R. 1941 provides our Atlantic and Pacific constituents, including those along Florida's Atlantic coast, the necessary protections from the dangers of offshore oil and gas, and deserve this body's full support.